Hello, it's Justin Roberts. It's 10:30. I'm live from Cloud Expo 2020 here in London. So I just put my coffee down. So thanks for everybody for attending today. I'm a solution architect working for Instana. We're trying something different. We are doing some webinars directly in the middle of the show. I'd like to thank everybody that came along. Got some demos. Still plenty of time to come down and see us if you're still around. You can still see there's still a few people here. So the subject of my webinar today is really around dashboarding. But I was also asked to run a small part of what we did yesterday, which was a live Kubernetes installation. I will fit that in the next 20 minutes. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat. I'll try and help, keep things moving. Let's keep this personal. It seems that we're going to have to get used to a lot of remote working maybe in the future. So, this is a good way to interact. And if I can help in any way, let's see what we can do. So let's kick this off. What I want to do is firstly share my screen. Yep, perfect. Okay, so actually before I start, I want to give a small plug for a piece of code that we've had floating around for a little while now. It's been actively maintained by the community. It's an example of a microservices application, a bit of a kitchen sink application. So lots of different microservices, lots of different technologies, and one of my colleagues actually built this. It's called Robot Shop. I'm just going to actually post it in the channel now. If you are new to Kubernetes, if you're new to this way of working, if you've got plans of moving in that direction, of course, this is a great way to see how Instana can work practically, even before you deploy it to your own applications. What I actually wanted to show today, though, was also just before we get into the dashboards, and we can talk about that. And of course, the joys of a live webinar on exhibition Wi-Fi mean that this could be kind of interesting. So let's go. Let's see what we can do. So I'm going to share my screen again. So following on. Okay. So if you're just moving in this direction around microservices, maybe you're splitting some of your your existing SOA, or you're just simply building a new microservice architecture and you want to feel how this all fits together, download the Robot Shop. You can submit a pull request. You can use it how you like. You can have a play with it. We have lots of active forks of the project. So if you want to have a go, I'm going to be showing that today anyway. So before I start, let me explain a little about my environment. I'm running on Kubernetes on Google Cloud Platform. I've actually got the Robot Shop already pre-deployed here. So I didn't think anybody would want to actually see that happening, but that's up there and that's running. There's my workload. To actually install Instana, all I need to do is again, we have a new UI. I don't know if you've spent any time with this. All you need to do is basically talk about the platform that you actually want this installing on. From AWS, installing on environments like Lambda. Currently support Node.js for a Lambda platform. We've got one of my colleagues doing a live webinar this afternoon, actually, on Lambdas. So right the way through multiple clouds, or even just running on native hosts. So in this case, I'm going to run on Kubernetes, and I'm going to install with Helm. And I've got a complete sort of copy and paste. I can name my I can simply name my cluster, and I can pick a zone, which is just simply a way of grouping together my my Kubernetes workers in this case. So what I'm going to do is just say something like this is live. Okay, and it's the 12th. Yeah, so 12th, 11th. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. All I need to do is copy that and actually run that in my environment. So what I did was I copied this into. I actually copied this into here, as you can see. And that was it. That's actually all I need to run at this point. So what I'm going to do, so remember that one command, and actually everything starts to get deployed now in my environment. Completely compatible Kubernetes, vanilla Kubernetes, platforms like AKS, OpenShift. Okay, so just to make sure that my pods are all running. And I did a talk yesterday about getting this all up running within 15 minutes. So I can see all my pods have deployed. So what will happen now is my agent will start to discover the tech stack that's running, discover my robot shop, start to, as we see a piece of technology, we'll start to download our technologies called sensors attached to each technology that it finds, whether this be well, obviously it's going to be a container in this case, but maybe there's a JVM running in there, maybe there's some Python, PHP, maybe it's a technology component like Elasticsearch, for example. We're going to automatically find that component, we're going to attach to it, and we're going to start to stream back real-time observability metrics and information back to Instana. So what does that look like practically? Now we use Robot Shop quite a bit, so that's actually here at the moment. So I'm going to come back to this at the end and show you my my environment that's been completely discovered. But I've already got some robot shops and things on here for. So before I go into the dashboards, I just wanted to have a very quick view around Instana, around what we do. I'm conscious that a few people who've signed up today have never seen the platform before. So we're a tool for DevOps teams to really help spend, I guess, less time resolving issues and more time drilling into root causes, and more time starting to sort of do the things that we all like to do, which is kind of build cool stuff, innovate, and those kind of things. So actually you can see my my environment starting to get discovered now as we actually go through. So once this is in place, we'll start to get a view like this. Let me show you. So this is a typical sort of robot shop deployment. I've got, again, kitchen sink of sensors, lots and lots of different different technologies that we use to build up this this picture. And of course you can see, of course, the Kubernetes control plane containers on here as well. Let me drill in. I'm sorry, that's going a bit jerky. Maybe that's my okay, so you can see I've got my technologies on here. I've got Node.js, Nginx, MySQL, Python, all automatically discovered. I can click on one of these. The first thing I'm going to see, of course, is a dashboard. So for those of you that know Instana, you'll know that we've got a unique approach to dashboards, and anybody can pop metrics on dashboards. You can get metrics on dashboards from open source, and we love that. That's great. But of course, all you're going to get at that point is a dashboard, okay, a view at a period of time of a set of metrics. Okay, so I'm making those live so you can see those coming in. Actually, with our data collection, we're pulling in data at 1 second intervals. Okay, so all of our metrics have a granularity of 1 second. But one of the things that you won't see with an open source dashboard, or indeed lots of the other dashboard tools that are out there, is dependency. Is that relationship between that core component and maybe it's upstream or it's downstream relatives. So for example, this is a Node.js application. This is my I use it for the front end of my service. Okay, but this is a Node application that runs in a process, that runs in a container, that runs on in a pod, that runs on a worker, that runs on a host. So we have that stitching of dependency from the call that's made right the way through back to the host that it sits on, or even the virtual environment like VMware, vSphere, or something like that. So it's definitely one of the core pillars of Instana, that we will continually maintain dependency. If I throw another container into my environment, as I'm inevitably doing, we'll discover that. We will attach to that container. We will start to grab that metrics, and we'll start to build up a new picture of dependency. And if you think about this from a dashboard perspective, everybody loves dashboards. They're visible. I heard them described as, I was talking to some ops guys, and they were saying that the dashboards are not really for them. They use a lot of alerts. I mean, a cornerstone again of Instana is the ability to automatically alert when anomalies are observed. Okay, so most of your time as a DevOps guy will be waiting for these alerts to come through, or hopefully not at all. The dashboards are there as a visualization, is really some kind of proof that everybody's in control and everything looks good. So for us, we want to show you dashboards, but we want to show you them completely in context. I will cover the custom dashboard shortly, but I just wanted to talk a little about that. And of course, this is not just about ingesting metrics from the technology. This is also about having a first-class citizen view of my Kubernetes environment, to look right from the top of the top, which could be a single cluster or multiple clusters, right the way down to any events that are taking place, my individual nodes, the health of my nodes, for example, all the namespaces that I've got running on there, deployments, pods. Okay. So again, it's about ingesting that massive data, but joining it together with sensible dependency. Okay. So I want to show you maybe one other thing that I'm going to mention as we go through. And really, this is, again, unique to us. This is the concept of application perspectives. So you notice we're collecting all of the call data that's coming through, interpod communication between pods and cloud services, communication between maybe between something like serverless, for example, all being collected, being collated, being named, being tagged as a type, technologies being surfaced, and we're collecting these 3 SRE golden metrics around calls, around latency, around errors, which really help us determine the health of that service. Because we need those metrics to determine if there's been a rise in latency, or a rise in errors, or a sudden drop in the number of calls. What we can do with those services is give you a view that's unique for your team, based on something that you define, and that's quite a nebulous kind of word. But when I talk about something, this might be something simple. It might say everything in this Kubernetes namespace is my application or belongs to this customer. I might also say, well, I'm only interested in the authentication components, or maybe something with a Docker tag that belongs to my team. Or I might say, this is maybe relevant to only to an environment like production, staging, for example. So I can build these perspectives. I can build as many as I want. I can have a unique set of dashboards and views based on this definition. And if I create a perspective, we're collecting a lot of metadata around. So I can use any piece of metadata that we find, and build a unique application view out of that. So I've done this on Kubernetes namespace in this case. So you can say I've already got a namespace called Robot Shop. So I'm saying, even if I put a new container, if it belongs to that namespace, it will then automatically be brought into the fold, be brought into the application perspective. Their unique services can belong, and data can belong to multiple perspectives if you want to do that. You can also split up actually your data streams, even with the idea of maybe if you've got a header, multi-tenancy, and you've got a header for each customer, you can actually split those up and generate unique sets of views, unique sets of metrics, unique sets of alerts based on those application perspectives. So I'm going to drill into my robot shop to show you this very quickly. Okay, and of course, then we automatically build a dashboard. So there's a dashboard there at the application level. I can have a dashboard down at the service level. Come on. Yeah. or even down at the individual endpoint level, so the API calls. Okay. Okay, so putting that all together, as I get back to my my perspective here, for example, can also view dependencies, that interconnection between different services, their data flows, and of course those golden metrics that are associated with every single call. We're constantly looking for a set of anomalies, for anomalies within these set of services. So if we see any particular sort of rises in errors, rises in calls, drops in calls, we can actually highlight that as being anomalous. Okay, if I'm a developer, I can go deep down and analyze through our unbound analytics to get to every single call that we collect. And again, we have a unique view on this, that we don't sample. We collect 100% of all traces for 7 days, and then we start to drop off the uninteresting traces after that. So we can keep the whole trace view for a year, and that will have all the interesting traces, but the detail, the 100%, we'll keep for 7 days. Okay, and as I can see, a typical call that I can drill into. Okay. There are, obviously a lot of other features, and we can do much longer demos if you want to see the product in more depth. More than happy to run through anybody one-to-one if they're interested in seeing a little more about this. But because, again, we have control and understanding of dependencies, it means we can be, sort of very accurate on alerting, making sure that we group together lots of events to say, this is the root cause, this is how you solve the problem, and generally spend less time fixing problems and more time, doing the stuff that we all want to do. So let's talk about dashboards, and particularly custom dashboards. Again, I've been working with our custom dashboards in Grafana for, I guess, the last year and a half, building different dashboards for customers, helping them build their own. And I really want to say that this is a great way that if you've got some other data, some additional data, and you want to add some Instana data in there, Grafana is an ideal tool to do that. So let me show you how you get Instana data into Grafana. So firstly, it's a plugin. It's on the Grafana store. You can download it. We should have quite a few versions out there, so we are, actively developing this. It's actually also open source, so if you've got anything you'd like to change yourself, please, you can have at it. Okay, so I need to install my plugin. I'm going to give a small plug also for Grafana. If anybody wants to try Grafana, you can get 5. You can sign up for a free account. You get 5 dashboards, and certainly for testing this out, for seeing some of the things you can do, just need to point this directly at Instana. In fact, I'll show you how to do that. Just 1 second. So remember, we installed. Bear with me. Do we just like a live demo, or do we like a live demo? Okay. So firstly, I will. Remember, we talked already about plugins. So here's all of my plugins that I have. For all of my different visualizations called panels, or for data sources that I might have also, which is, of course, Instana is going to create one. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is create a data source. Okay, and basically I can choose where that comes from, but here we go. There's an Instana one. Okay, so I only need to put a couple of things in here. Well, URL of my server. In this case, it's going to be my Cloud Expo demo server here. Okay, an API token, which can be generated from the UI. Okay, and then you can actually use the browser itself as a proxy, or enable offline snapshots. All you need to do at that point is save and test. It'll also work with your own open source Grafana if you're using this internally as well. Okay, once that's in place, I'm kind of ready to go. So I'm going to start with a dashboard. I'm going to open one that I've already got. and I'm going to join, say, maybe a Cloud Expo demo. So nice and simple. I'll show you some neat features though. I'm going to add a query. Okay, so here's my my starter view, and I can change the visualization. I can go for a graph or a stat or a bar gauge, for example. So there is a load of visualizations that you can download from Grafana on this. You can roll your own if you want to. I've seen customers use lots of different sort of views of this data. Not all are compatible, particularly the ones that are sort of community generated. But I think it's for you to take a quick look and see how that fits. Okay, so as we start, we've got 5 options for different data sets that we can actually use. Infrastructure built-in metrics, so any of my existing infrastructure data sets. Custom metrics, so that could be StatsD, it could be micrometer, it could be GemX metrics, for example. They're all supported within Instana. Windows performance counters, we could use those in there. Application service endpoint metrics, so metrics around call rates, around those service quality metrics. The application calls themselves or end user monitoring. So select the kind of data that I'm looking for. I'm going to start nice and easy. First thing I'm asked for is a query. And for those of you that have not worked with Instana before, we have a really simple way of actually getting at data that I'm most interested in. So, for example, I'm interested in some Spring Boot application. Oh, okay, bear with me. Interested in some Spring Boot applications. I can drill straight in there with this query. It's simply, we call it dynamic focus queries. It's Lucene syntax. It's really quite straightforward to work with. But I've also got other ways of, chopping data in here as well. I'm collecting a lot of tags. We'd already talked about collecting a lot of metadata. So, if I'm interested in one particular area that's been tagged here as a shipping, for example, it's found a container that's been tagged with shipping. So I can use these queries anywhere I choose. I mean, I might have this as a zone, or I might go in a little deeper. And what I can do is basically, okay, let's just keep this nice and simple. So I'm gonna pick hosts. Dynamically, it's gonna download all of my data categories that I can use here that are all available. But I'm going to start probably with the most simple, the one that everybody kind of starts with in the first place. And we're going to say, okay, let's go for, host used for CPU use. Nice. Okay. Immediately, you'll see that for each of my host names, these are going to be displayed. Okay, and that's just for this current last 6 hours. Now, there's lots of things I can do here to improve that experience. I've got a different legend format, so if I wanted to call this maybe $host. Okay, I can get just the host name. It's actually container name in this case, but I can just get the host name. Actually, these are garden containers in this case from PCF. So I can. I can build, I can choose how that's displayed, I can change my visualization, I can actually dig in a little deeper here. I change my panel title, or as I go to my visualization, maybe I don't want this as a line chart, maybe I want this as a bar chart. Maybe I want to go back here and say, well, actually, I'm going to go to my advanced mode here, okay, and I'm going to use something like time shift. So I've got this option here that's advanced. It's off, put on, and I might time shift this. I might time shift that back by 7 days. Okay. So what that's doing now is showing this data series as the last 6 hours minus 7 days. So it's quite easy then for me to create a second chart and have these overlay. So I've got a complete comparison of how this was performing now compared to a week ago, and I can do this all the way through for all of my for any of my services that I'm interested in. So if I get back to my endpoint metrics here, for example, I get a list of my list of my applications. So back to my robot shop. Okay. And I can pick a service that I'm particularly interested in. Maybe payment. That's one that's close to my heart. I can again not pick an endpoint filter, or I can look for a particular posts on pay, so something that's actually happened, and then I can collect those. Then I can collect those metrics, those service quality metrics that we're collecting everywhere. So again, we should see that appear. Okay, when you see gaps in here, simply means that there's none happening at that time. So it's really easy for me to build some customization for showing on a big screen if I really want to. So again, I advise you just to take a little bit of time, have a play with this. There's some nice advanced features if you take the time just to dig in a little more. Also very happy to support you if you have any questions or queries on this. Actually, so I've got my pay. I can see my payments, some business metrics at that point. But of course, I can start to pull all of this together, and I can build dashboards like. So this is based on end user monitoring data, but it could be a mixture of a number of different data points that we actually have. But relatively small amount of work can give really impressive visualization that you can pop on your big screens, as well as hopefully you're going to be listening to the small messages that you get from notifications and alerts. I think at this point I'm going to open this up to questions. Do we have any questions at this point? Are there any questions? I want to say thank you for listening today. I mean, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. As you can appreciate, it's been quite an interesting, noisy environment, little here, and we're going to do some more of these. There's one more later today. If you have any questions, any queries, please come back to you. But thank you for your time.